Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to mismapasion, and the CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup continues to laugh in the face of the return of club football as its semi-finals were contested today in some epic matches between the USA and Canada, and the match that we start the semi-final review with, Brazil versus Mexico. Continental powerhouses Brazil were coming up against the fiery surprise package in Mexico, who in the last video I mentioned were on an absolute tear across the tournament and had yet to concede a goal so far in the competition, which was up until their quarterfinal game against Paraguay, where they shipped 2 goals but still managed to see the game out to reach the semi-final berth. For Brazil, they were in effective cruise control coming up to this game, as they had been in cool, calm, collected, and clinical fashion throughout their entire Gold Cup campaign so far, and were undoubted favorites going into this match against the plucky Mexican underdogs. Both teams put their best foot forward in terms of their lineups, and the match itself started emphatically with both teams looking to get at it and be the first to be on the score sheet, with Brazil being quick to assert their dominance and giving Mexico little to no breathing room to get into the game, apart from the odd attacking breaks, which unfortunately did not go too far during the proceedings. But it did nothing to deter El Tri nevertheless. The game itself was not short on any superb technical quality, and of course some expectant physicality between the opposing players, which I found refreshing, personally, because it just spoke to the agency that both teams had to make the final, with Adriana managing to break the deadlock after the Mexican defense switched off at a key moment, which is just a stereotypical example of football's cruelty when you lose concentration for just a moment. If anything, the goal helped to ramp things up between Brazil and Mexico, and the heated play got turned up in the 29th minute when Hernandez was sent off for Mexico for a VAR-assisted call for a bad tackle, which I think at worst should have been a yellow, but since it was a denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity, there was no choice for the referee but to give her a red. And from that point onwards, it was, like I said before, cruise control for the Brazilians, as a wonderful goal from Antonia on the edge of the box proved too difficult to stop, as it was now 2-0 to the Brazilians and nowhere near halftime, which would have been a saving grace for the Mexicans. And in the second half, the icing on the cake would be placed on the green and yellow cake as substitute Ribeiro cheekily no-look flicked the ball into the back of the net to give the Brazilians a decisive third goal to kill off any hopes of the Mexicans, who, despite their best efforts and some great individual actions, particularly in the second half, ultimately succumbed to a 3-0 loss to see them bow out of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, with Brazil punching their ticket to the final against the winners of Canada versus the USA. In what can only be defined as a clash of the titans, longtime rivals Canada and the USA met up in the other semi-final match played today to see who would get to be the dance partner to Brazil in the final. And the match itself looked like something out of a movie, with heavy rain adding an extra dramatic flair in what would already be a guaranteed banger of a match. In less than a minute, the players on both teams were literally wringing water from their shirts, which is a sign of things to come with regards to how crazy things were to become in the game, as every pass, shot, tackle was greeted with a rising splash of water, almost as if to emphasize the impact of everything that was going on in the game so far, with both teams having to navigate these tricky conditions, which did admittedly harm the overall flow of the game. As it wore on though, both teams adjusted to the weather as we finally got the first goal of the game, courtesy of Jaden Shaw, who arguably led the charge in bending the elements to her will like she was the Avatar herself, to give the USA the early lead. The second half of the game proved to be far more competitive and a bit less dependent on mastering the elements, as the rain had finally let up and some of the water had managed to be drained sufficiently to let the ball flow more freely, as exemplified in Canada's late equalizer that saw substitute Jordan Hightomer head in from an Ashley Lawrence cross, which forced the game to go into extra time after what is initially looking like a squeaky 1-0 win for the Stars and Stripes. Extra time itself did not disappoint, as both teams were in full flow with nothing stopping them from going all out to book a date with Brazil in the final. And just like how time is a flat circle, the USA are an inevitable force, as deep into the first half of extra time, Sophia Smith restored the lead of the USA after going one-on-one with Kaylin Sheridan, and it seemed that all was said and done, finally, for the USA. But just as the clock had run out in the second half of extra time, Alyssa Nair unwittingly gave away a penalty after her fist collided with Vanessa Gilles' face over a contested ball in the air, which Aston Villa star Adriana Leon promptly put away to take the game to penalties. With the USA going first, Sophia Smith got the goals going by dispatching her effort, with Adriana Leon failing this time to work her magic for a second time again for the penalty spot as her effort was saved by Nair. Albert was up next for the USA and skied her shot to give absolutely no jeopardy whatsoever to Kaylin Sheridan, but Nair luckily was there to save the day and keep the USA ahead with another great save to stop Haitema's effort, which went the same way as Leon's. And as if saving 2 goals wasn't enough, it would be Nair herself who would step up to the plate and take the USA's next penalty. And just like she wanted you to know that she's her, Alyssa Nair effortlessly put her effort away into the bottom net. And though she finally conceded a goal to Quinn, Nair's aura proved too strong for the Canucks as she saved the final effort from Jessie Fleming to put the game to bed and send the USA to the final, where they will meet up with Brazil on Sunday evening/Monday morning, depending on where you're watching in the world. As much as it was painful to wake up at ungodly hours to watch these games, given the part of the world that I live in, it was worth it, because I was not disappointed at all and can argue that the lack of sleep was worth the spectacle of both these semi-final games. For the USA and Canada, it is a shame that the game will forever be marred by the poor playing conditions that the players are subjected to, and I'm sure that the same sentiments will be echoed from the recent Under-23 game featuring Australia versus South Korea, where the players had to play in heavily snowy conditions. Personally though, I think on a general level that if the players, coaches, match officials, and any other personnel with the vested interest in the game agree to let the game go on despite whatever weather conditions they may face, then it's really all good, because they are all empowered enough to say whether or not they think a game should go on, because player safety is important and the utmost first primary thing that needs to be taken into account before a game is played. In this one scenario though, I think a judgment call should have been made to at least delay the game till the pitch had been drained some more, because there was an undoubted risk of major injury involved here, and given the factors, it is a happy miracle and a good sign that no one suffered something horrific like an ACL injury, and hopefully Vanessa Gilles is alright, because at the time of recording, there is no word on whether or not she has suffered a concussion, but we all hope that this is not the case. And sadly, the Mexican dream is over. As a neutral, I did the most stereotypical thing and rooted for the underdog. And I can't lie, but El Tri Femini really put themselves out there and captured the hearts and imaginations of fellow neutrals and of course, their home supporters. It was genuinely so cool and fun to see them make their way to the semifinals in such a dominating fashion, and hopefully there's more to come from them in the not too distant future. And as I mentioned before, the CONCACAF Gold Cup Women's Final will be taking place on Sunday night, early Monday morning, with the USA going in as undoubted favorites. And barring some freak footballing escapades, I do not put it past the Stars and Stripes to get their hands on the silverware when the final whistle blows. But as always, this is football, and anything can happen. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.